Disney World is not worth the money, and I'm going to run through numbers to show just how out of hand the pricing has gotten and give you some tips to save money. And also tell you why, even though the prices are crazy, we are still going. Right now, if you book 5 nights at the Art of Animation, which is classified as a value resort hotel, in July for 2 adults and 3 kids, plus tickets for 5 days instead of 6, but we do add the park hopper option because I think that's a must, including ground transportation, that brings you to a total of $6,345.91. An important thing to note is that the pandemic price hikes have led to huge profits, which is great for shareholders, so I wouldn't expect any less of these high prices in the future. See, Walt Disney World shut down for the longest time in its history. And our trip we had planned for 2020 was canceled, and we had been waiting years to go on that trip. So essentially they told us, you can't have Disney World. And when you tell someone they can't have something, they seem to be willing to pay a lot more for it. So since reopening, there's been this pent-up demand, and Disney's seen no real pushback on raising their prices. They've gotten some vocal complaints, but overall, people are paying for the tickets and they're coming to Disney World in droves. So Disney hasn't seen any real issue with the price of their trips. One of the things pushing profits is the addition of Genie Plus in lightning lanes. These are additional charges for using the old FastPass lane and not having to wait in line as long. And this used to be a freebie, but now it's a paid service. Now, this seems like a very optional thing, but with how expensive a Disney World vacation is, you can understand that a lot of families are only going to be able to do this trip once, and the time they spend at the parks together can be very important. So it makes sense that a lot of people are going to pay for the Lightning Lane and Genie Plus so they can have more of that quality time riding rides instead of waiting in line. So if we add Genie Plus and a premium ride to 3 of our 5 days, that's going to add an additional maybe $375. That's my estimate. Now, another program that is currently unavailable is the Disney Dining Plan. And so this makes it more difficult for me to budget the food number, but I'm going to take my best guess. We usually like to do some quick service and mix in some nicer meals on each trip. So I'm going to do mostly quick service and 2 nice meals on our 5-night trip. So if we factor in a quick snack from the hotel for breakfast, quick service for lunch, quick service for dinner, with 2 nice dinners during the trip, I'm going to estimate about $1,000 for food on the trip. Now, some people are going to look at that number and say it's low, because I know personally we usually spend more than that. And then my snack packers and money savers are probably going to think that's high. But I think it's a reasonable number for a 5-night trip, probably a little bit on the frugal side, $1,000 for food. Now, Disney World is also full of amazing shopping all around the parks and hotels. And so we have yet to take a trip to Disney World and not come back with extra stuff that we bought. And so I'm going to go ahead and put $50 per person as a spending budget. That brings us to $250 just for a souvenir budget. And then our next expense to add is airfare, which for us is about $450 per person on Southwest Airlines flying from Texas to Orlando, which brings us to $2,250 for airfare. So that brings us to an estimated $10,220 for our family Disney trip, staying in a value resort, going to parks for 5 days with a hopper, with ground transportation to the hotel, with food, souvenirs, and some Genie Pass in there too, estimated. Total altogether, $10,220. And when you think about it, that's about 15% of the average household income in the US. That's a really huge expense. That seems very high to me. And a lot of people will probably come out and say, there's a lot of ways to make this trip cheaper. Like you could go for a shorter amount of time. That's a big one. We've got a 5-night, 5-day pass on here. But we're talking about the fact that there's 4 giant parks in Disney World. There's 2 water parks, which we didn't even talk about. There's Disney Springs, there's restaurants, hotels. It takes a longer trip to really experience everything that Disney World has to offer in a meaningful way. And so that's why I think a 5-night trip for me is very reasonable if I'm doing a trip to Disney World. And so now the question is it worth it? Is $10,000 worth it for a 5-night trip in Disney World? And one of the things I like to do to find the answer to that question is look at some other options. So instead of flying to Disney World, we could just take the 90-minute drive up to Round Rock, Texas, and go to a Kalahari resort. Now, we just did this a couple weeks ago, and I'm gonna plug in a stay for 3 nights there, which is more than enough time to do the indoor water park, the outdoor water park, the ropes course, the rides, and the arcade. So with the Kalahari water park, tickets are included with the hotel price. So it's just one charge there. So grabbing a room, a VIP package, some rides, and some arcade credits, that brings you to a total of $3,104. Now, I want to cautiously throw another $500 at this budget, which I think is a healthy budget for food and some extra games and stuff, for the couple nights that we're going to be there. Now, if I want to be even more conservative, I could round that all the way up to $4,000. Now, I think that's super cautious. I think $4,000 is like an amazing Kalahari trip and should get me a really awesome trip to a place that my daughter absolutely loves. And I can save enough money compared to the Disney trip to buy myself this 2004 Mini Cooper, because obviously I need one of those for some reason. But look, I say all that, and here I am. Here I am, just having booked a Disney cruise and adding on 2 park days when we get back, like I told myself I wouldn't do. And so why did I do this? I told myself I was tired of the ridiculous prices, but here's the deal. Here's where I have trouble. It's when my daughter has her bell dress on and she's running up to the castle, and you can see it in her face that this is the most magical place on earth. And how do you put a price on that? What price tag can I put on those family experiences? And that is just something I haven't been able to do. I look at my daughter, I look at my nephews, and I realize they're only gonna be kids once. And the more of these memories and experiences we can have at Disney World, the better. So we keep doing it. And when you experience the service at Disney, you experience what we call the Disney bubble. That really makes you feel like you're somewhere else. And it's hard to find that at another vacation destination. And so how much is that worth? That's what makes it so hard. So let's talk about a few things for those of you that are thinking about going to Disney World. Let's get into the good stuff. Let me give you some tips and some advice on making your Disney World trip worth it. The first one is to plan ahead. I have a lot of friends that see the video from one of our trips and they see the pictures and they ask me about going to Disney World on this sporadic Disney trip next month. Like, I'll get the message on Instagram that says, hey, awesome trip. I think I'm going to book something for June. And I like to just tell them to pause for a minute, because a good Disney trip to me is a planned one. There's a lot to do, a lot to plan. And when you do it spur of the moment, you can sometimes miss out on a lot of stuff. There's less hotels to pick from and restaurants because everything's booked up. So be patient and plan your Disney World trip a little ways out. Plan it a year out. We plan most of our stuff either 9 months to a year away from when we actually go. And the second thing is kind of piggybacking on that. My second tip is to build the hype. I love getting our daughter excited about our trip to Disney World. So planning a trip further out so we can get our family excited about it can be amazing. And we do the countdown, we save our money, we do chores to earn Disney money. We wake up a lot of mornings and the first thing she wants to do is look at how many days we have left to our Disney World trip. And I may or may not use this as leverage sometimes, saying, hey, you want to go to Disney or not? But the fact is, if you're going to spend all this money to take the family to Disney World, give yourself some time to build the hype around it and get the family excited about it. My third tip is to learn the app and do your research. So much of your trip is made a lot easier by knowing how to use the mobile order app. You also want to get familiarized with Disney transportation so you can figure out what parks you're going to hop to and how you're going to get there and where you want to get dinner and when you want to get back to the hotel. Learning all the different stuff will help you do that. Planning your Disney trip is like putting together a puzzle with all these different pieces, but with so much to see, a well-planned trip tends to leave you feeling more like you got to see everything that you wanted to. All right, and my last bonus tip is this. This one I think is really important. Make your budget for your Disney vacation and save the money so you can pay for it. Get a very good and clear understanding for how much your Disney trip is going to cost. I say this because there's a lot to see, a lot to do, and a lot to enjoy on your Disney World vacation. And you don't want to deal with the stress or the worry of it costing too much. Trust me, when you're waiting in line for the ride, the last thing you want to do is be stressed out about the fact that this trip costs too much, right? Like, it's the worst. So do the work, save the money, plan the trip, do the budget, and it will make the trip a lot better. Or you can do what I do, which is just swipe the card and cry about it when you get home. No, I'm not recommending that. I'm saying don't do that. So seriously though, like and subscribe if you watch this video, trying to pay for my next Disney trip. Thanks. The other problem with going on trips to Disney World is you can spend a ton of money planning your trip and then have to deal with this.